Welcome to Flavor Text, a podcast where we explore the lore and stories of Arkham Horror the card game, episode by episode, and we see how they interact with the gameplay. I'm CrabbyTerror8, and I'm joined, as always, by my erstwhile colleague, Kevling. Hello, Kevling. How are you?
Hello. I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. We're celebrating Freedom Day here in Sydney. We are officially out of lockdown, which means we can enjoy a beer at the pub and further spikes in cases, I assume, in the weeks to come.
Well, yes. All you need to do is just look at our COVID stats and you'll see your future lined up for you.
Yes. So
yes, as is going up and up and up and up and up, but no one's doing anything about it.
Yes, but the good news is you're going to tell us all about nuclear submarines. So we're joyful. You can't imagine how joyful we are about that.
Yes, I don't think the French are very happy with you, though, are they?
No, the French are not very happy with us. So I have a French colleague, and when he called me the other day, I said, "Oh, you're still speaking to me, are you?"
Well, we have nuclear submarine manufacturing facilities here in this city, right. The most inland city in the country.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we got Rolls-Royce base here.
Of course.
We've got one section of the one. They're in two. This is boring for the podcast. Feel free to cut this out. There's one side of the city they've got a plant making jet engines, and the other side of the city they've got a plant making submarine parts or engines or whatever. It's a nuclear Rolls-Royce nuclear or something like that.
Well, at least in a nuclear exchange, you'll be instantly vaporized. So I guess that's a plus, isn't it?
Yes, suitable target.
Yes, that's right. We're here. I guess what are we talking about today, Kevling?
We're climbing that hill, aren't we?
We are. We're going up that hill.
It's where Doom awaits this week. Yeah, we go. All the way up to the peak.
Yep.
And see who's waiting for us up there.
Yes. Yeah, and we had a good time, didn't we? We played this as a standalone, and we had a pretty good time.
We thought we were having a good time, and then it all got away from us at the end, didn't it? We thought, we're doing quite well. Look, we're way ahead of the act here. Oh, yeah, we're nearly at the top. We've only got
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Game over.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks to Beyond the Veil, which I guess we'll talk a little bit about bit later. So I suppose we've... there's been quite a focus in the second half of this campaign, I guess. We're in Dunwich, and it's called the Dunwich Legacy, so that's good. We're actually in the right place, and we've done Blood on the Altar, and then we did Undimensioned and Unseen, which is around it. And this is a third scenario that's in Dunwich, but we're not in Dunwich Central. This is a little bit different in terms of where it kind of kicks off, isn't it? Yeah. A bit different.
I was talking about this Sentinel Hill, isn't it? Is it just outside there?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I get that because you can see it says there's a faint glow. So you sort of wake up and everybody's gone, or they've locked their doors, or basically it's like there's nothing going on in Dunwich anymore, and you can see in the distance a faint glow. So you're probably talking a 10-minute drive. I mean, all of the ordnance survey maps and tourist brochures of the area sort of say it's a 10-minute jaunt from Dunwich Central. So, and it says you go in a car, so I'm assuming it's probably not a short walk, but it's not. We're not talking.
True.
It's you go in Zebulon's beat up truck towards Sentinel Hill. The whippoorwills are going crazy. And there's clearly something going down on the hill, and the hill is known. It's not like it's it's kind of got form. This hill. It was talked about in the Dunwich Horror, which they have. Your investigators have the sort of documents. It's talked about in those as well.
Yeah, and it's in the setup. It's in the intro as well, isn't it? It says, the tales speak of satanic rites being performed there, rites in which great ritual pyres light up the night sky while the ground rumbles furiously below.
Yeah.
So, yes, you don't want to go wandering into that unawares, do you?
If you didn't know already, you know now.
Yes.
And in a way, it's classic, right? It's classic Lovecraft, Cthulhu and everything. There's a ritual going on. There's an old one being evoked, and the plucky investigators have to try to stop it. I mean, you can't get more classic than that, really, can you?
Definitely. And of course, we are so well prepared for it.
That's right. Yes, you'll either have some allies or not, a Necronomicon or not, maybe, various things like that. But there's this weird little side thing that you might have some extra help, which is kind of strange in a way, isn't it?
Yes, it echoes right back to House Always Wins, doesn't it? So if the O'Banions have our back, and the reason they would have your back is if you were able to escort Peter Clover out of the Clover Club back in, way back in scenario 1A, was it? I can never remember which way around they are. 1B. 1B, House Always Wins, yes. Then they've now got your back, and they just turn up here at the base of the hill at a convenient location. And whereas in previous scenarios, if they didn't have your back, they're turning up just to give you a hard time on a train or wherever. But now this, if you've done that, they've got your back, and it actually makes setup slightly easier because it gives you a little bit of a head start with some clues.
Yeah, and the explanation is basically, we were wrong to have been harassing you. We now understand that you're okay, and we're going to give you a... It just feels a bit contrived, to be honest. A little.
Well, they wouldn't have been harassing you if they'd got your back.
Yeah.
It's like it's binary, isn't it? It's if you rescued Peter Clover, you'll have not seen hide nor hair of the O'Banions for the rest of the campaign until now.
Yeah.
Whereas if you didn't rescue Peter Clover, there'd have been a thorn in our side in multiple scenarios.
Yes. I still really don't understand. I mean, it was fine to have the O'Banion gang in the casino. That made sense, organised crime, and it's a casino. But I don't. They really seem very superfluous apart from that. I don't. They don't seem necessary at all for the rest of the...
It's almost like they just decided they needed some sort of narrative reason for putting this particular encounter deck in. Yes. Because probably for exactly those reasons, it didn't fit otherwise.
No.
It makes no sense to have them on a train. But no, they're following you on the train. That's right then, that's absolutely fine.
No, they don't exist in the original story. So it's not like, they were in the original story either. So it just feels a little bit tacked on, but it's not terrible. It's just they just feel a little bit superfluous to the whole thing. That's all.
I guess it's part of the constraints they have to work to in the deluxe format, where they have the initial box with 2 scenarios and then a bunch of encounter cards.
Yeah.
And then those encounter cards then get reused throughout the campaign. So they probably had that same conversation. It just doesn't fit. We need to work out a way of explaining why these guys keep turning up.
I mean, it's a small aside, and it's only if you rescue Peter Clover anyway.
It is, which is a very slim... I tried to say it's very rare occurrence that actually happens.
Yeah.
More often than not, the O'Banions would be after you.
It'd be interesting if they didn't have you back and they were trying to gun you down as you were trying to run up the hill. That would have been... That would have been interesting. So anyway, so like you say, you might get a couple of clues. It does feel like in fact, in a way, it's like a kind of a false ending, because it feels like it should be the ending of the campaign, right?
And it could be.
It could be. Yes, exactly. Well, it could be.
There's a thing that struck me as part of the setup as well. I'm not sure whether it's just because I've never dissected it like this before. The setup for this scenario, it does make it feel like you say, like this is the grand finale, because every single scenario leading up to this affects this setup.
Yes.
You've got, where are we? You've got extra chaos bag tokens if you didn't rescue the students. You've got an extra chaos token if you didn't, if you cheated in the Clover Club. You've got the extra clues to start off with if you rescue Peter Clover from the Clover Club. If you've got the Necronomicon, that affects the setup. Essex County Express also added extra chaos tokens.
Yes.
Whatever happened with Silas, that has big impact on the setup here.
Yep.
And then also how many Brood escaped on the previous scenario also affects the setup, because that puts Doom into play.
Yep.
So it's like they've managed to key in something back to every single previous scenario. So, like you say, it really does make it feel like this is the grand finale.
It absolutely does. And I did play this little game where I thought, well, what would be the best thing? What would be the sort of the best position that you could be in coming into this?
It's like planning how you're going to play all the previous scenarios, sort of thing.
Yeah. The best outcome would be you rescue Peter, you restore Silas, which means that you use clues and you have the Necronomicon in Blood on the Altar, right? To restore him, you have to have the Necronomicon and not kill him and use clues.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Have all the allies sacrificed. And resign in Undimensioned and Unseen, and yet you do get, because all the allies sacrificed, you'd only get 2 doom, but you would start with clues, so that's kind of, you'd say, that would be the best outcome. Which... that's a very bizarre...
And lots of that is not how you would naturally play the scenario, is it?
No.
Or most of it, in fact.
Let's restore Silas with the book, but let's have all of our allies sacrificed. Yeah, it kind of... not quite, but that to me sounded like that would be the best way to deal with it all. Pretty much. So... Yes.
Yeah, I just found it fascinating how, like I say, every single scenario has affected this one.
Yes.
It's all leading to this, as they say.
Yeah. So if you didn't know there was another scenario, you would think this was the end of the line. It's sort of like a false ending or it could be an ending, as we'll talk about, but it's sort of a false ending in a sense, isn't it? It's not the end ending, as so to speak. So like you say, setup is fairly... The thing I like about this scenario is sometimes, and I feel this in the later scenarios, I've been playing... I don't know about Edge of the Earth, but obviously I've been playing the Innsmouth Conspiracy. And one of the things I'm finding is and I've just finished playing... Horror in High Gear, which is great, but they're getting very complicated. It takes so much brain power just to set the bloody thing up and work out what you're doing. And I guess you get used to it, but the thing I liked about this scenario was there was some randomness, but it was basically set up 3 cards, you're going up the hill, and there's a bit of a random...
Explore a bit at each level.
That's right.
And you've got to get to the top. Yes.
Yeah. So it wasn't too... you weren't focused so much on the mechanics of how you were going to get there in terms of the, working out where you had to go and what you had to do. And I appreciated that it was fairly straightforward, which was good.
You've not got that sort of cognitive overload trying to work out all the different things that are happening each time you take an action sort of thing.
Yes, because the story tends to get lost then because you're so focused on the process. But I didn't find that with this scenario, so I really appreciated that. You're just at the bottom of the hill, you got to get up, and you, for whatever reason, you can't get to the next. It's a classic gated, right? It's gated.
Yes.
You've got to get clues, and you've got to they're gated, so you can't just go through without getting the clues at each level.
Yeah, no sprinting through the train picking up clues on the way here. No. You've got to stop and explore at each level.
Yes. So we've basically got Sentinel Hill, base of the path, ascending path, and Sentinel Hill. Essentially, it's just getting from the bottom to the top. But there's a lot of challenge in the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and also, like some of our favourite scenarios, there is an element of randomness in the setup as well, because at each level you've got these 4 different paths that you can explore, but only 3 of them will be in play, or 1 will be out of play, should I say, and the 3 set aside, and then they will just randomly come in, so it does add that bit of variety as well. As if there isn't enough variety as well in the setup based on how you played the previous scenarios, so...
Yeah. But this one doesn't feel so bad. You're only taking 1 out. I mean, there is 1 that's got no clues on it, but most of the time, like you say, it adds variety, but it doesn't tip. It doesn't feel like it's, based on the randomness, you're going to end up with a terrible combination. They're all pretty much of a muchness, really. in that way.
They are, yes. We get different versions of Act 2 depending on... We've already touched on that, what happened with Silas.
Yes.
But that basically gives you 3 different versions that are basically... It's almost like 3 different difficulty levels, isn't it? One of them you've got Silas to deal with, one of you you've got an injured Silas to deal with, and the other one he's not there at all.
Not there at all.
So,
yes. There's a benefit there to restoring Silas.
Definitely.
Which is a harder thing to do in Blood on the Altar because you're not killing him, you're getting the clues. And so, like you say, the sort of the act is the path to the hill. And I think the thing I like here is that the act and the agenda sort of really set the scene in the setup, because the path to the hill talks about a vibrant arcane energy fills the air with a bone rattling chill, and the energy swirls along the crushed trail before you and seeps down several other paths before disappearing. So you get the feeling that things are not just, the way they normally would be. So the act kind of sets that up nicely in that way.
And then the agenda also gives you the idea something was really cracking off here. Calling forth the old ones, as you approach Sentinel Hill, you hear ancient Latin rites bellowed across the night. The time for action has come. If you cannot stop the sorcerers in Dunwich, who knows what terrors they might unleash upon the world.
Yes, so we got Latin rites bellowed out and arcane energy crackling. The only thing is that it's a fairly lazy 12 Doom to sort of, it doesn't feel... I mean, I know you could have a couple of Doom on there because of Undimensioned Unseen, yes, but it doesn't exactly feel like you've got time.
Well, we thought we had time when we played it, but maybe it's lulling you into a false sense of security.
Yeah.
It just gives you enough time for the enemies to kill you.
Yeah.
But yeah, and as well, there's only 2 agenda as well, so that's probably one reason why you've got a higher Doom threshold.
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be a very short game.
Yeah, and really, the agenda's not doing very much, except there's just a ritual going on, at the top of the hill. That's happening, but that's all you know. The agenda's not very descriptive. It's not saying very much, at least until you flip it over and you get a bit more information. But at this stage, you're just getting the sort of atmosphere of it.
Yeah, and like you say, it's not really the agenda isn't driving a lot story-wise or mechanics-wise. Normally, you flip the agenda and that will trigger something happening. A card will come into play or something will be revealed. But this one, it's literally just shuffle the encounter, discard power back, and have some narrative. So there's nothing mechanically going on there. It is literally just that Doom timer for the total of 22 rounds.
Yes.
When you add the 2 together.
Yeah, so again, it makes it more straightforward. The main thing is we've got to get these 2 clues per investigator to unlock the next level by exploring the base of not the base of the hill, but the diverging paths at the base of the hill, basically. But you can resign and say, "This isn't what I signed up for," run away.
Yeah, we've got that right at the start, haven't we? Our old favourite. We go to all the trouble of setting you up. Nah, so I'll leave it. Yeah. But obviously, we now know what happens if you do resign, but I guess we'll come on to that later.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That is a very dangerous carrot being dangled in front of you there. Yeah. So shall we start talking through the locations? We start off with base of the hill. The long slope of Sentinel Hill rises before you, cresting in the jagged edges of Sentinel Peak. And some very evocative art there. It starts off all nice, lovely trees and a winding path at the bottom, but as you get to the top it looks darker and more sinister, and those jagged rocks look very sinister indeed, with some sort of structures up there as well, it looks like. They're just like dead trees, it looks like, doesn't it? As if it's been struck by lightning multiple times.
Yeah, it looks like it's seen some action over the years.
Definitely. All those tales of satanic rites.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, as you mentioned earlier, the next location up the hill, ascending path, is blocked.
Yep.
So it says there, the path leading up the hill is masked. You cannot move. So all we can do at the moment is explore at the base of the hill to put these diverging paths into play, of which we will have 3 randomly selected out of the 4 available.
Yes. Now, the interesting thing is that it's not blocked by rocks or anything. It actually says when you try to follow the path leading further up Central Hill, you somehow end up walking in a perpetual loop. Each time you stop to find your bearings, you find yourself back at the base of the hill again. So it's some magical thing is basically stopping you from ever getting there, if you like.
So what shall we do now? Shall we have a look at the diverging paths themselves?
I think so. So I'll start with the one we all hope we'll never get. Destroyed path. This is one you hope you get rid of, because there's no clues here. And the thing is, you want to get the whatever clues there are, but this one gives you no clues. It's a destroyed path, so I guess the implication here is there's no path at all. After you reveal destroyed path, put a doom on it, so you add a doom, and you can investigate to remove that doom. But essentially, it's wasted effort because it's not going anywhere. So it's going to cost you probably a turn for your investigator, because you would move on to there. You'd then have to investigate and maybe move back. So you would have lost a turn, which in solo would be pretty steep kind of cost. Probably not so bad in multiplayer, but still, not great. But thankfully, it's the only one I think that doesn't have clues.
Yes. The others have all got 1 clue per investigator. And we need, according to the Act, 2 clues per investigator to advance.
Yeah.
So basically, we need to clean up on 2 of these locations, don't we?
That's right, yeah.
And so I just mentioned there, on that destroyed path, no flavour text at all. Very disappointing.
I know. Lazy, devs, lazy. Come on, give us some flavour text.
Okay, so the next one we have is Eerie Glade. So this is a shroud of 4, so this is probably the hardest of the 4 locations. 1 clue per investigator. Forced effect: after you reveal Eerie Glade, discard the top 2 cards of your deck for each action you have remaining. So that's a common theme, isn't it, throughout a lot of these locations, as depending on the timing of you going into that location, it can have a negative effect on the rest of your turn. So here, for example, discard 2 cards off your deck for each action you have remaining. So obviously that's punishing you for going early.
Yep.
And then other cards, as we're about to see, it's going to punish you for going late.
Exactly.
So I think probably the safest route is maybe to do the revealing on the middle action of each turn to try and minimise either way. But I'm sure someone else will have done the stats on that. So that was Eerie Glade.
And it is very eerie. It's a very strange picture. I still can't work out what's going on. It looks like there's blood on the ground or something. It's all very strange. And then the next one is Frozen Spring. And this is after you reveal Frozen Spring, lose the remainder of your actions and immediately end your turn. So presumably because it's so cold or something. Despite the temperature of the air, the spring has frozen over completely. So...
Yeah, and I'm guessing part of this is that you're exploring through all of these twisted, narrow paths, so that is what is taking the time away from you.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes, exactly.
So it's sort of probably narratively that might be how it fits.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable assumption.
And then the final one is the beautifully, most enticingly named Slaughtered Woods. Not quite sure how woods can be slaughtered, but there you go. Forced: after you reveal Slaughtered Woods, take 2 horror if you have no actions remaining. So just like the previous, on that one, if you go on your last turn, you are getting punished.
Yes, yeah.
The previous one, you were getting punished for going early because you lose your remaining actions. The one before that, you're losing cards if you have actions remaining. So the punishment definitely seems to be around going early more than going late.
Yep.
It seems.
Yeah.
Apart from this one.
Yeah.
And and as we'll also touch on later, some of these with discarding cards, that's a common theme in this scenario as well, is milling your deck, which will then lead you into Beyond the Veil unless you've prepared for that.
Yeah.
But yes, we'll touch on that in a bit as well.
Yes.
So so that's our 4 locations. So that one was only a 2 shroud, that location. So it's a 2, a 3 and a 4.
Yep. No flavour text on this one, but Pretty horrible picture.
Well, mind you, look at... Yes, you got bodies hanging from the trees and like a raven picking at the feet of one of them.
So if you manage to survive all of that and you get your clues, you can flip. I guess they're aligned, aren't they? Because you would flip the path to the hill, and then you would be able to go up the path. So they're kind of aligned in that way. Because you have to.
It's part of advancing the act, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to.
It reveals the masked path.
Yeah. You don't. When the investigators collected the requisite number of clues, they must immediately spend them. So there's no waiting. So there's this synchronization between moving up the hill and the act. Yeah.
And a very distinct bit of narrative on the reverse of the act there. So during your search through the wooded paths around the base of Sentinel Hill, you come across a startling sight. A herd of sheep lays dead upon the ground in a secluded clearing, their bloodied carcasses placed in a strange but careful pattern. Holding your nose against the stench of death, you step over the mangled sheep on your way to the centre of the odd formation. Okay, that's a bit odd so far, but it's going to get odder. In the centre of the sheep lies the corpse of a man. A clear jewel has been pressed firmly into his forehead, caving in the front of his skull. His eyes are wide, his face contorted in a vision of fear as if beseeching you for mercy. Though you know better, you check for a pulse. As you touch the man's skin, the jewel in his forehead dissolves, and the woods around you seem to clear. How bizarre is that? So I'm guessing it's this jewel being... a combination of this jewel and this man's forehead is what is masking the hill to prevent people like us stumbling across what is going on up there.
Yeah.
And so now our objective is to get up to the next level, which is Sentinel Peak itself.
Yes.
Which is, we can't get into there until we've got 2 clues per investigator.
Same thing again, right?
So we need to go off wandering again.
Yes. This time down a different set of paths. This time the altered paths, which compared to the divergent paths are really quite freaky in comparison.
Yes, and these are classed as altered. So some of the other treacheries and things like that will have an effect if we're at one of these locations when one of those trip.
Now, the thing we just didn't mention just briefly was that when you're at the base of the hill and the ascending path, you've got to investigate to bring them out as a random location.
Yes.
So it's not like
and we can only do it once per round as well, so you can't rush it.
Exactly, you can't really. It's very controlled in that sense, and I can see maybe that's why they put so many Doom on the agenda. Like you say, you can't rush it. You can't do it super fast. It won't let you. You would be in trouble if you were doing the solo with a low. Why would you though? You wouldn't take an investigator who couldn't get clues. I suppose you wouldn't do that. But yes, it does require that as part of it. Yep.
A tear in the path. So this is a shroud of 3, 1 clue per investigator, and another bizarre piece of art. It looks literally like a crack in the ground of which you can see space through it. Not space as in space as in outer space.
Yeah.
Looks like stars and planets and moons in there. And again, you can see the city in the background as well, so you know we're not far away from Dunwich.
No flavour text again. What are they doing to us?
Again, there's loads of space for flavour text there.
That's right. They could have put a lovely thing about, the tear was unfathomable. Like, surely they could find something that Lovecraft has said about something like that or something. But anyway. Again, we got a forced effect here. After you reveal it, take 2 damage if you've got no actions remaining. So again, you're being penalised for leaving the investigation till the end of your turn. Not the investigation. No, it is an investigation, isn't it? Yes, it is.
You've investigated to reveal this location.
It's not clear why a tear in the path would be so damaging. I guess maybe you lose your footing, or it looks more like it would cause your sanity to question your sanity as much as anything. But anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay, that's a tear in the path. And then the next one is Dimensional Gap, which is a very freaky looking picture. It's like everything's super warped, and This is again a 3 shroud, 1 clue per investigator location. It says after you reveal dimensional gap, discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until an enemy is discarded. Spawn that enemy here instead of its normal spawn location. That's one that you'd rather like to not have to encounter if you can help it.
That's one of the rare one. In fact, I think that's the only one that has got nothing to do with which turn it is.
No. Exactly. Yep. And no flavor text again.
So if you're trying to avoid going early or late, and this one will still kick you in the teeth.
It's almost not worth worrying about. You just got to kind of just take it on the chin or whatever, because you just never know. Yeah. So no flavor text for that one. It's
So here we have. This is Lost Memories, 2 shroud, 1 clue per investigator, and again forced. After you reveal Lost Memories, take a horror for each action you have remaining. And a nice little flavour text there. No, this shouldn't be here. This can't be here.
You think they're talking about the left-hand side or the right-hand side?
I don't know.
The right-hand side looks very Silent Hill to me. It looks a bit horrific. So
yeah, it looks like a bit of blood and almost like bits of building. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's supposed to give it like a sort of a street. I don't know. You're sort of seeing one of your old memories through there, something painful.
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then finally we have Uprooted Woods, which is, again, 2 shroud, 1 clue per investigator, which looks like, I don't know if you've played that video game Control, which is actually quite...
Yes, it does.
It looks a little bit like something from that. Everything kind of floating around in the air and things. Forced,
which is a very Lovecraftian game, to be honest, isn't it?
It's brilliant. Yes. Love it. Forced, after you reveal Uprooted Woods, discard the top 5 cards of your deck if you have no actions remaining. So again, it's a no actions remaining. So
yeah, I think that is the most common theme, isn't it? That it's the last action that causes you the most.
Yep.
So that's 2 of them out of that set get you on the last action. And then it's all of the ones. Only one of them gets you on the last action in the first set. The other 2 penalise you if you've got actions left. Yes. So
I mean, it's putting everything in the path to stop you from getting to the top of the hill. Essentially,
it's like whatever. It's like everything is engineered so you can't get there too quickly. No. Yeah. You can only reveal 1 location per turn. If you go into that location, you've just lost the rest of your actions. So it's just constant obstacles. I suppose that's mechanically. I suppose that's mirroring how difficult it is to get up to the top of this hill.
Yes, and it says at Sentinel Peak, similar thing. An arcane wall blocks the path further up. So again, there's this sort of arcane energy that's stopping you from getting up to the hill any further. Yep.
But so we've been through those 3 of those 4 locations.
Yep.
Potentially with enemies spawning at them and such like. And I think when we played it, we had the situation where we needed to get to a specific location to get some clues, didn't we? And there was a nasty enemy sat there, but we drew the treachery that reshuffled them all. And it let us avoid him completely, which was really nice. Not very often the game does nice things like that for you.
And there's the rather amusing devotee of the key who sort of starts at the bottom of the hill.
Oh, yes, we've not touched on him, have we?
And just runs up the hill. It just sort of does this. He does what we can't do, apparently, which is just sort of runs up the hill no matter what.
So all we needed to be was devoted.
Yes.
And we could just go straight up there.
Exactly. I mean, the other thing we found, which a lot of people are going to find as they're doing this, is they're going to get the Beyond the Veil, particularly in a multiplayer game where you're drawing lots from the encounter deck. And so that plays into this sort of card discarding because it becomes a threat. In fact, it becomes a bigger threat as time goes on because you are literally discarding cards if you get Beyond the Veil. And if your whole deck has no cards in it, you take 10 damage, which is going to kill most investigators. So it's quite a significant, and we found that it's quite a significant threat.
Yes, it got us both, didn't it? Yes,
it did. It did.
Yeah. So you have to know that's coming up to then be able to prep for it in your deck building.
Yes.
To get something like, I'm trying to think now, is it Devil's Luck, the survivor card that says if you will be defeated, cancel up to 10 of the damage and then exile this card, I think it says.
Yeah.
I'm more familiar with the survivor cards than the rest, but yeah, I'm sure there are a couple of others like that. But I think a lot of those cards would not have been in the card pool at the time this came out, so this would have just been an insta-kill, wouldn't it?
Exactly. And you know what I thought of? I've played Harvey Walters quite a lot. He's a great character, but he relies on card draw. His special ability is if you draw a card, you draw an extra card. He's all about having a full-handed, drawing cards like crazy. He'd be terrible. If he got beyond the veil, he might as well just give up because, you know what I mean? That totally nerfs his ability.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty nasty card to get, and really amps up the threat quite significantly in this scenario. So
I think probably in the core set, probably the main way of avoiding this is for the Mystics, isn't it? To play Ward of Protection.
Yes.
So when you draw this, you can fast play that to cancel it and just take a horror.
Exactly.
But, at the time, like I say, at the time this came out, I don't think there were many toys to be able to deal with that at all.
The likelihood also is that by the time you get to the point where you're getting to the peak, you're likely to be on the second agenda, unless you've been really lucky and you've done it really fast. Oh, that's right. I didn't mind. I quite like this, the way it says the world begins to change, the grass and trees dissolve like sugar in a cup of tea. I thought that was lovely. I don't know who came up with that, but that's just great. So things are, basically reality is just sort of just warping. The world is altered. And then all we have here is just basically a quote from Dunwich Horror, which is about Yog-Sothoth being the gate and Yog-Sothoth being the key and the guardian to the gate, which is... so instead of trying to evoke it more, it's almost giving you this dread that Yog-Sothoth is this all-encompassing being, and if he's around, it's not good. It's not good.
And you don't have a printing error on that card. It's supposed to look like that.
Yeah. What is that? Like static?
It's also like corrupted text, isn't it? Sort of thing.
Yeah. So it's very...
sort of overlaid various bits of punctuation over it to make it look more otherworldly, I guess, but still English.
Yeah. They walk serene and primal, undimensioned and unseen. It's sort of a... it's this idea, this very Lovecraft idea that we've just got no idea, what's going on. We can't even see what we're supposed to be, It's just... Yeah, it's brilliant.
So... that was all those locations. We've done all 4 of them, haven't we? So now we're at the point where we can reveal Sentinel Peak.
Yay!
And again, depending on which of the Act 2s we've had, will affect what we're going to face when we get there. So we could have Seth Bishop, we could have an injured Seth Bishop, or we could have no Seth Bishop at all, which, like you say, is the preferred option.
My favourite one, though, is the one with Seth Bishop, where you throw the... I think this is the one where you've Silas is back. You've used the Necronomicon. I think it's the version 1. And you throw the pendant onto the ground, and he sort of staggers back and falls into the rift and gets disappeared.
Yeah, so that's the pendant you get from restoring Silas.
It's almost, almost by accident. He's just like, what? Ah! And then he just sort of disappears.
And he's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
You sort of get a slightly different version of the narrative, don't you, depending on which version you get. Whereas the second one, when the gate opens, you've got Seth holds onto the stone in front of him to present himself when being sucked into the gate, but several others are startled and pull through it. So, and then the other one is the same in that way.
Yes. The difference there is that he can't complete the Latin incantation in the third one. So he uses a blood rite instead to make it happen. So that's why he's got a damage on him, because he's basically used blood, because he's getting very frustrated with the it's not working, Seth. One of the other men cries out, "What are we going to do?" And then, the man pulls out a cobbler's knife, and, the father demands a blood sacrifice. So he slits it at his wrist, and that causes it to happen. And that's why he's got a damage on him. So, yes, they're similar. The only difference is he's already got a damage on him.
Yeah. And so now we are at Sentinel Peak, and the gate is open.
Yes.
So Act 3A, from the ruins of the headstone on the altar at the Hill's Peak, a gateway of churning, vibrant energy has appeared. A force like a hurricane erupts from the gate, bending trees and pulling debris into it. The howl of the gale drowns out all other sound. Somehow you must find a way to close the gate. And the objective is to spend 2 clues per investigator at the peak.
Yep.
And that's where we failed, wasn't
it? Yes, it was.
Last week, yeah.
And it feels a bit Indiana Jones, the bit in Indiana Jones where it's, don't look, they're tied to, and they've got their eyes closed and there's stuff swirling around and all that sort of thing. It feels like that.
Definitely.
Very much. So, yeah, and the interesting thing is, that, so there's Seth Bishop there, and I mean, he's elite, but he's not what I call the toughest elite.
No, 3 health per investigator. So yeah, the 5 fight and the 5 evade do make him a bit tough, but health-wise, he's not. It's not like the Ghoul Priest or whatever, where it's 10 per investigator.
Yeah. So and he's got retaliate, sure, but the thing is, in a solo game, a bit more challenging, but in a multiplayer, you're just going to get the 4 clues, right? And that's it. Like you don't even. Yes. Someone could engage him while the others get the clues.
True.
So it's not, in a way, it's a bit of an anticlimax because, Beyond the Veil notwithstanding, which is where we kind of came undone.
Yes.
It's actually not that, there's not that much to do. You basically got to hold off Seth Bishop long enough to get the 4 clues, or the 2 clues per investigator, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Shroud of 4, so it's a bit tougher than some of the other locations we've been at. Flavor text there. It was here that the Watleys used to build their hellish fires and chant their hellish rituals. So again, a throwback to the Dunwich Legacy there, I guess. And I think you should read the flavour text on Seth Bishop with one of your brilliant accents.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
You did such a good job last time.
Oh, yes. Okay. And he says he miss Corey as how he took for Seth's crows. Frightened he was and found him in the upper pasture nigh in Devil's Hop Yard in that awful shape. Huff on him's clean gone, and nigh huff on him that's left to suck most dry blood with sores on him. H.P. Lovecraft, the Dunwich Horror.
Perfect.
This is Lovecraft's idea of what backwoods New Englanders sound like. I don't even know what that means.
People said he had strange ideas.
Yeah, he had very strange ideas. So, I mean, basically, it's pretty straightforward. You don't even have to kill Seth Bishop. You get a victory point for him, but you actually get 2 victory points, I think, for Sentinel Peak anyway. So, so that's essentially it. You just got to,
Yeah, so, Seth's basically some bonus XP for you, really, isn't he?
Exactly.
But obviously, if you're playing this true solo, you've got to deal with him before you can deal with the peak. So that makes it much more difficult. Whereas at least if it's in a multiplayer game, like you say, or you're playing 2-handed or whatever, one of you can hold him off while the other goes for the clues.
I mean, in some circumstances, if you were playing Leo, you could possibly just tank all the damage and horror. He only does 1 damage and horror. You could literally just tank damage and horror and get the clues. You know what I mean? In some circumstances, you might be able to actually do that rather than worry about killing him at all if you're getting low on time and things like that. So because he doesn't do that much. He's only doing 1 of each. So we didn't have an issue with him or getting the clues. Our issue was a bit different, wasn't it?
It was Beyond the Veil, wasn't it? Yes.
There we go. So if you manage to get the 4 clues, I think you're immediately spend them, don't you? And that's advance.
It says only investigators at Sentinel Peak may spend the requisite number of clues to advance.
So you might want to hang around to finish Seth off. And it's interesting. There's all these other people there, but they're not fighting you. It's just Seth, basically.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously there's other enemies in the deck as well. So we could have a crazed Shoggoth appear. We mentioned the devotee of the key come running up that hill.
The spheres.
There's some thralls in the deck as well.
Yeah, the agglomeration of spheres, or whatever they're called, conglomeration of spheres. You can have
wizards of Yog-Sothoth. So there's a fair number of enemies to deal with.
Yeah, and also at the Sentinel Peak, you're taking damage if you draw a hex. So it's almost like there's stuff. There's just energy swirling around, and it's generally causing you damage if stuff happens. Things like that. So, yeah. I mean, it's not easy. It's kind of just more straightforward, I suppose. It's just just going to get these 2 clues per investigator.
Yeah, I think that's this scenario through and through, isn't it? Pretty straightforward, really. Bit of a complex setup depending on the previous scenarios, but the actual scenario itself plays pretty straightforwardly. Quite a nice structure to it as well. Investigate this level, then move up. Investigate this level, then move up. Now deal with the bad guy and escape.
Yes.
Well, not escape.
Yes.
Step through the portal.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And it's interesting that the ending is not you kill Seth Bishop and he falls to his death and that's sort of it. It's like if you do have the clues, it says you don't know how to close the swirling gate before you. And with each passing moment, the force from within it grows in strength. You fear that whatever entity the sorcerer summoned from beyond approaches. With no time to spare, you turn to the open tome on the stone altar for answers. So you're like literally flicking through a book. There's arcane energy everywhere, and you're like, hold on, let me just have a look.
Let me do some research on this.
It's like, really? You'd be looking through this tome trying to find an answer? It seems kind of a bit amusing that you'd be madly kind of, flipping through this book you've never seen before, trying to find the answer to...
It must have the answer. It must have. They were using it.
Let me just check the index. Closing the gate. Here it is.
Well, it's funny you should say that, but when you read Resolution 1, it almost says that. It says, the poorly bound tome appears to be written records of old Whatley, the man who taught Wilbur the ancient secrets of sorcery. You find a passage describing a place outside of time and space where worlds converge and Yog-Sothoth dwells. Only by reaching the nexus at the edge of reality can you unmake the tear that has split open the world. Feeling as if you may be going to your doom, you muster a final ounce of courage and step into the gate.
What?
So somebody go, what is this place then? Oh, looks like we've got to go there to stop it. Off we go.
I really have a problem. I'm sorry, I have a problem with that. Why couldn't we just be sucked into the... You know what I mean? Why have us searching through a book trying to find the answer? Why couldn't it just say it gets too strong and you just get sucked in? You know what I mean? It just seemed ridiculous that you would be on the top of this bloody hill looking at this book trying to find, the answer, I guess.
Yeah, it's not as though narratively they're trying to say there's no way of stopping it. I don't know. It's like, like you say, it would have made more sense to be just dragged through rather than you choosing to go through.
Yeah.
You're choosing to go through just because of what some old book says that they might have been using to conjure it up in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Why not just find something in the book to stop it? Or, I don't know. Have you got time to sit and read the whole book before you realise there's definitely nothing in there to stop it? I guess we're going to have to go through anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like it feels less believable than just it got so strong you get sucked in. A bit like what happened with the Essex County Express. There's a tear in space and it just sucks stuff up into it, and that feels more kind of. That kind of makes more sense to me than the sort of madly searching.
It's a little bit clunky, isn't it, this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, that's a small gripe, really. Because if you don't do that, well...
as we've been alluding to throughout this entire podcast, yes, anything other than finding the clues, that's game over, dude.
It is completely... Yog-Sothoth basically appears, and that's the end of everything.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but when we were playing it last week and we failed the scenario, I don't think we had remembered that was going to be the end. It's like, oh well, never mind, we'll pick up next time. Oh no, we won't.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, the sorcerers from Dunwich, seeking arcane power from beyond this realm, have accomplished what Wilbur and old Whatley could not. Through blood sacrifice and indescribable experiments, the dark power the sorcerers sought is now within their reach. However, they will never get the chance to truly wield this power. In beseeching Wilbur's father for knowledge, they have drawn the creature forth from its extra-dimensional realm. Yog-Sothoth emerges from the open rift above Sentinel Hill, blotting out the sky and enveloping the world. Now it has come to Earth, and it rules where humanity once tread. Surely that should have said trud. I don't know.
That's it. We're all doomed. We're all gone.
Yog-Sothoth tore apart the barrier between worlds and became one with all reality, which was nice. Each investigator is driven insane, and the investigators lose the campaign.
Yes. So it's either a false ending or it is absolutely the ending. So yeah.
Yes.
Where it does kind of subvert expectations is there's no opportunity to close the gate. You're either jumping into the gate or it's the end of everything. There's not this sort of kill Seth Bishop, his chanting stops, gate closes, that's it, kind of deal. That doesn't happen. So it does subvert expectations from that perspective.
Definitely. And so that then brings us next time to number 7, Lost in Time and Space. And we will find out what is on the other side of that gate.
Yes, and it's one thing for this game to create locations and sort of physical things. I don't know very much about this next scenario, so I'm interested to see how they create a sort of a strange dimensional world lost in time and space using, the cards and things. And how they bring that to life. I'm sort of interested to see how they manage to pull that off. So, yes,
looking forward to that.
So, what did you think about this scenario all around, Kevling? What were your thoughts?
I think, as we've sort of touched on, it was nice and straightforward. Yeah. It's nice to have a scenario without that sort of overhead of multiple layers of mechanics trying to work out. Oh, right, well, if we do this, then actually on the next round, these are now going to move to a random location, so they could be heading to... You haven't got to worry about any of that. It's literally get exploring, get up the hill. Nice and straightforward. And I think the way the exploration fits in with the narrative, it all works really well, I think, on this
It does. It's very well controlled, and it also works really, really well. I agree. It's well balanced in that way. The only thing I think about is... it's a little bit of an anticlimax when you get to the top of the hill. You know what I mean? There's not much.
Yes.
There's not much. They seem to have emphasized getting up the hill compared to being at the top of the hill. You know what I mean? And stuff happening at the top of the hill. It feels, and I'm not saying they should have done it that way, but it is a bit anticlimactic when you get to the top of the hill because there's not much there. There's just Seth, up there, and that's kind of it. There's not much. It's not like there's multiple things happening at the hill and there's multiple people and multiple events. It's like you say, it's fairly straightforward when you get there. Most of it's really getting up to the top rather than at the top.
Yeah, I think like you say, it is well controlled to get to stop you getting up to the top so quickly. You can only unveil one location per round, so it limits how quickly you can get up there, and there are enough treacheries and things in there to actually put an end to your game before you get up there. So there's plenty of obstacles to try and overcome, but like you say, there is no climax, so to speak. You've got Seth to deal with, or not.
Yeah.
Or you can just ignore him and try and close the gate.
Yeah, no, I think about Indiana Jones, for example. I know it's not the same, but, there's lots of stuff happening to get to the Covenant, but then the Covenant itself is a hell of a set piece, There's all these things that happen. And so it's very satisfying from that perspective because you're not let down at that kind of... And that's often the hardest bit to do, right? Because that's where everything sort of comes together. And I'm not saying there's, Sentinel Peak's fine. It's just for such a thing that's such a world-ending kind of moment. It's a little bit kind of thin in terms of what's going on, I guess.
And I'm guessing the next scenario is that final scene, so to speak, as to what happens when we step through the gate.
I think you're right. I think that's the point, isn't it? Is that the next scenario is really the sort of where all the sort of final action happens. This is just the sort of the intro to that. So I think you're right. It's not really the end. It's just the beginning of the end, really. So I think that's probably the difference. Yes. Yeah. But all in all, very enjoyable. I really enjoyed playing it, and I think from a story perspective, it does a really good job of bringing the whole thing to life. You certainly, you feel the peril and the sort of arcane energy and everything going on. So they've done a really good job with that. I think it's great. Yep, really good.
And after coming straight after Undimensioned and Unseen, it's a massive leap in quality.
Absolutely, brilliant, fantastic. Yes, tackling the final chapter in the Dunwich Legacy, which is, I was going to say it's Undimensioned and Unseen, but it's not.
No, wipe that from your memory. We are not going
lost in
back
time
there.
and space. So really looking forward to talking about that. So until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8.
I'm Kevling.
And we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for listening. Please like, comment and subscribe. We'd very much like to hear from you. If you would like to send us your thoughts, send it to ftextpodcast@gmail.com. That's FTEXT podcast, ftextpodcast@gmail.com. You can also listen to this podcast on YouTube. Just go to Out of Ammo, Out of Time, and you will find it there. And it's also available on the usual podcast platforms, iTunes, Google Podcast, that kind of thing. So if you want to subscribe, go there. But until then, I'm CrabbyTerror8, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks. Bye.